In this short video, I want to discuss briefly why the concept of Western civilization is still relevant. Before I give my two reasons why I believe that's the case, I want to just look at a little bit of the opposition against this concept that was found in our reading this week. Kwame Anthony Appiah, in his article, "There's No Such Thing as Western Civilization," writes, "The very notion of something called Western culture is a modern invention. To be blunt, if Western culture were real, we wouldn't spend so much time talking it up." Lawrence Birkin, who doesn't go as far as Appiah in the rejection of Western civilization, does argue for a redefinition of Western civilization. He argues that this narrow view of Western civilization that he is proposing, that if it were to be taught alongside all other civilizations together in a single teaching, it would show a clear link between all of them, that these ideals that we often call Western are nothing more than shared ideals across all civilizations, and that this would then usher in a more pluralistic America, which the previous study of Western civilization has created a more oppressive and marginalization towards minority groups. So this more narrow view, taught alongside other civilizations, will show a link between all humanity and therefore usher in a more pluralistic America. Now, I find both of those arguments shortcoming. And the reason why I say that is because both articles, the authors argue for a teleological end that will establish a world that will be more tolerant, more pluralistic, provide more liberties, and more rational inquiry. To which I simply say, based upon all of those ideas that they long for as the end of man itself, you have to ask yourself, where can those principles and ideas be found? And it is overwhelmingly, predominantly, and almost exclusively products of places where Western civilization has either framed the entirety of that society, or it has been a place where the West has at least had its hand in dealing with some of those matters in that specific societal framework. A perfect example of that would be some of the countries like Japan and South Korea, places that have very much been influenced by the West and Western civilization. Now, there are two primary reasons for why Western civilization is still relevant today. First, it provides the foundation by which every American and almost every European's life is governed. I love what Juvenal wrote in his book. "We form an idea of liberty instinctively, or so we think, but it is in reality a throwback of the collective memory to the day of the freeman." So we come out, just like those two writers that oppose this view, come out with these ideas of tolerance and liberty and rational inquiry and rights, and yet none of those come instinctively. They are ultimately a product of years and years and years of development and ideological growth. Why do we have a constitution? Where do these rights come from? These abstract things that are out there that transcend us, but are also inalienable to us. Why are we governed by representatives? Why do we have liberties? Why is tolerance and pluralism good things? All of those are directly grounded in a foundation that has been established by what has been known and will continue to be known as Western civilization. Secondly, Western civilization provides a clear and linear history of both the evolution and the continual acceptance of particular ideas that have framed the Western world. And I thought Rosenthal Pobel's article, "Reflections on Ancient and Modern Freedoms," really eloquently portrayed this by showing how both the classical antiquative views of freedom, whereas the modern liberal views of freedom, have really served to balance and grow and develop one another, and how they have shaped throughout history where we are today in our thinking regarding freedoms, why we hold freedoms, the certain freedoms we do, and what has served as kind of an ideological basis in governing those freedoms and liberty. This goes way against Birkin's view that Western civilization, this idea, is nothing more than children rummaging through clothes in an attic, this random picking and choosing, but rather it shows a clear evolution and constant a line of ideals that have been either removed, adapted, or have been pulled and elevated because they have shown themselves to be the fittest of ideals, lasting multiple millennia. And I think very much in this case of the Judeo-Christian worldview that is in many ways cross-culturally provided principles that have remained fairly unchanged for multiple millennia and still govern us today. A Westerner who undermines the idea of Western civilization should be likened to one who wants to enjoy their favorite fruits while at the same time trying to destroy the fields that have produced them. Ultimately, the reason why Western civilization is still so relevant for us today is that because apart from grasping these understanding, these ideas that have built us, we cannot know how we've gotten to where we are, and we will not know how to get to where we need to go as a people moving forward. God bless.